My people have a saying that when the road becomes a habit, the danger in it becomes invisible. Not because it moved, because you trusted it without looking. In November 2023, a game was released that proved this with a corridor. Archive 07, The Loop. Player number 4200 entered exit 8 for the first time at midnight. The game has one rule. Walk the corridor, find what is wrong. If nothing is wrong, keep walking. If something is wrong, turn back. The corridor is a Japanese underground passage, long, fluorescent, institutional. Every surface, every ceiling panel identical, every exit sign in the same position. You have walked it before. You know this place. Player 4200 failed the first exit 17 times. Not because the anomalies were hidden, because the brain, your brain, every brain had already decided what the corridor looked like. And once the brain decides, it stops looking, it starts confirming. Exit 8 has sold over 2 million copies. The game contains exactly one mechanism. It is not a game mechanic, it is a neuroscience experiment, and you are the subject. Some things were buried, but nothing is ever forgotten. It is only misfiled. In 1999, researchers Daniel Simons and Christopher Chabris ran an experiment. They asked volunteers to watch a video and count how many times a basketball was passed between players. Midway through the video, a person in a full gorilla suit walked directly through the center of the frame, looked at the camera, walked out the other side. 50% of the volunteers never saw it. Not because they were distracted, because they were focused. And focus aimed at the wrong thing is blindness with a different name. The researchers called it inattentional blindness. When the brain commits to a task, it stops processing what it did not predict. The gorilla was not in the prediction, so for half those volunteers, the gorilla simply did not exist. Here is what that means. The brain does not receive the world the way a camera does. It makes a guess about what is out there, and then it looks for proof that the guess was right. It is not looking for what is actually there. It is looking for confirmation. In a corridor you have walked 17 times, that guess is almost perfect. The brain has filed this room, it is done with it. So when one ceiling tile shifts, when one sign is wrong, when one figure stands where no figure stood before, the brain does not generate an alarm, it generates a match. This is called predictive coding suppression. This is the machine Exit 8 was built on. The game is not asking whether you can pay attention, it is asking whether your brain will let you. After several major aviation accidents, investigators found that experienced flight crews had missed items on checklists they had completed hundreds of times before. Not new pilots, senior crews, people who knew those procedures better than anyone. The environment was familiar, the task was practiced, the errors happened anyway. The solution was to redesign the checklist, to force the brain to treat every item as if it were being checked for the first time, every single pass. They could not fix the brain, so they built a system that worked around it. Here is what the archive recovered. In Yoruba tradition, Eshu Elegba stands at every crossroads, every doorway, every passage between one world and another. He is the gatekeeper, and his presence at the threshold encodes one specific instruction. The threshold demands attention every time. Not because the path is new, because the path is familiar. In Irish folk tradition, the fairy roads were paths the land held as its own. The belief was precise. The person who disregarded those paths did not escape the consequence. Not the stranger who had never walked them, the one who had walked them before and stopped paying attention. In Japanese forest tradition, the trees held a presence that required acknowledgement from those who passed through. The traveler who entered a forest they had walked before and treated it as already solved was recorded as the one who lost their way. 3 traditions, 3 continents, 3,000 years apart. All of them saying the same thing: pay attention at the threshold. The familiar place is the dangerous one. The traveler who stopped looking did not reach the other side. They called it a spirit. The brain calls it predictive coding suppression. The warning was identical. Player 4200 did not fail because they were careless. They failed because they were certain. They had walked this corridor. They trusted what they knew. And that trust, that confidence, that reasonable feeling of knowing is exactly what the corridor was waiting for. Certainty is the loop. Exit 8 is not a horror game. It is a mirror, and the mirror has been on the wall for 3,000 years. We are only now reading what it says. My people have a saying that when the road becomes a habit, the danger in it becomes invisible. Not because it changed, because your trust became blindness. If a corridor has ever felt familiar and wrong at the same time, you have been at that threshold. Leave a comment. Tell the archive what you noticed. Subscribe to Primal Vellum. The record continues. Primal Vellum, where myth becomes memory.